So we did something that I wasn't initially very happy doing. I was a big proponent of manufacturing in India, and to scale, we added China. And I wanted to be able to get more India, because I thought raising the Indian flag would help market the product. I thought this is what was important, and we found it very, very difficult. But as far as capacity, between our facilities in India and facilities in China, currently we do about 100,000 units a month. 80% of this is in India, 20,000 or so it goes to other countries. We're trying to scale over the next 6 months to about 3 to 4 times that. Okay? Now, 400,000 units a month, 5 million units a year, doesn't affect 14.7 million, doesn't affect 220 million. So we're not assuming we're going to be 100% of any market share. But if you think of the size of company, we were very, very small less than 2 years ago. You take our global sale was 50,000 units. Okay? Now we are a little better than 1 million units in the last 12 months. Okay? So you just multiply those numbers and you see the impact it's had on us. And from that, our expectation is by the middle of 2014 that our revenue run rate would put us at about $250 million annualized in product sales. So the scale for us is unimaginable. I couldn't have forecasted it. Anybody would have laughed if they read it. I didn't have the audacity to suggest that things could go that large, but that's the reality. What we're hoping is that we can impact the market enough that others will follow through. That they'll realize that this is a huge opportunity, and this is the way to do it. Don't worry about the hardware margins as much. Look at the recurring revenue streams. Look at the opportunities that come up after, because if you enable that customer, the opportunity is there. And if you don't go after that opportunity, then little data win is going to come in and eat your lunch, 100%.
So you got a food in order by the time you were trying to launch. I assume that those guys were having some kind of content access where they're trying to put that all on and online. But still, we need to reach to a place where they full access to it. When you said that the phone was, the way the phone, maybe a phone in the country where your installer was using it, because prices came down. I remember when Reliance came in with a 200 rupees phone or 300 rupees phone. You gave me 300 rupees with the phone, you make a thought, and then I started seeing that installers started buying it. Maybe they were throwing the phone after using it, but today they are accustomed to use a phone. So do you think that tomorrow you should also build a kind of model where you can sell a task to a guy in the village who can have free access to internet, and he pays 300 rupees, let's say, for a monthly rental for free, and maybe that could be a breaking point for these that 3 million people.
Sure. So let me address the two things you said. Most of these 4 million were people online. In India, there are 3 markets. There's 100 million people that use the internet. 50 million of them have access at home. There are 13 million broadband connections. 50 million people have access at home. 50 million only have access at office or internet cafes. I think that most of my first customers that have bought are in that second 50 million. They're using internet cafes and so on. But there's a certain portion that reaches to our call centers that are in the remaining 1.1 billion that we want to try to reach. So our expectation is not that everything will be online, but and we believe that we will have to engage and set up retail channels. The question becomes, how do you eliminate the margins in the retail channel if you've got to set up a retail channel, right? Are we not going to be the exact same problem as everybody else? Well, the moment the product becomes a commodity, right? The moment the product becomes a commodity, the margins drop, right? Today, a 20,000 rupee cell phone sells for 100, 200 rupee margin. That's it. It's a commodity. Somebody's going to come buy it anyway. Don't worry about it. as long as you've got it. Get on our shop, sell you cell phones, right? So we want to be able to go retail the moment this becomes a commodity, and we think we will go retail in the next few months, and the margins will be cell phone level margins, okay? So that the mass adoption starts and we have that. The second part of your question was? Yeah, so the question becomes, how do you do the equivalent of what Reliance did, right? And part of it is going to be, one, microfinance as a way of doing it. Second is being able to ourselves do microfinance versus external. Be able to say, hey, there's enough of that recurring revenue stream that I can wait enough and take a loss. Currently, we're too small to take a loss on the hardware. We've got to make a profit on the hardware. But over time, we could potentially. And I think it's important not to undermine the government part of it. Okay? The structure the government's going to do is that they're setting up a DGS&D rate contract. They're going to set up a rate contract, and anybody that can match my price can be part of the rate contract. And then any authorized accredited institution in the country will be able to buy directly into the rate contract with a 50% subsidy. So what will happen is that, at least for the education field, the government buys bulk in large quantities, pressurizes, forces price down, gets it for 2,000 rupees, subsidizes 50%, and now you have a real way of buying it at 1,000 rupee capital. So there are a number of these things that are coming into play, and we're trying to force that price down very, very aggressively. And we'll see. But you're right. Am I at my target price point yet? No. I think it's got to go down significantly lower.
The business model that you very confidently said that we do not realize the business opportunity that they have. Now, as I understand, in the US at least, all the cell phones are sold on a contract. Yes. Nobody buys a phone at a full price. They keep on paying a part of the price every month along with the bill. Now, what prevents Apple from doing a similar model for their tablets? That's question number one. Second is a little more basic question. Now, this is for literacy. You're using a computer device for literacy. But you also need some level of literacy to use a computer device. Now, how do you get out this chicken or egg syndrome?
So let me ask both of them. In the US, about 3 years ago, 74-75% of cell phone purchases were under contract. Less than 25%-ish was prepaid. That number has changed. It's about 62% that is contract, 38% prepaid. And the reason is, as the economy has faltered, credit has dropped. Less people get credit approved, and they're not getting that. In India, it's, I don't know the exact number, but it's more than 95% that are prepaid. Less than 5% are postpaid. The credit mechanisms in this country will not allow the poor man to get credit for long periods of time. He's got to be able to pay that up front, okay? And if you think of the amount, remember, we're talking about a $500 tablet. We're talking about a tablet that is 30,000 rupees or 20,000 rupees, right? And we're talking about somebody for whom this will be 2 or 3 months worth of salary, okay? In the US, that's not what they're financing. They're taking a guy who's got a $4,000 monthly income, and they're financing an $800 phone for him, okay? If they had to finance for a person with a $4,000 monthly income, 3 months worth of salary, a $12,000 product, there will be no adoption in the US. So because of credit mechanisms and so on, it'll be very, very difficult. And remember, it's not what will happen 5 years from now. The race is on now, right? There's a huge growth spurt, exponential growth going on right now that they're getting left behind on, and they have no choice. You know, they want to own this, they can say we can own the internet for the future forever. That's it. Every child will grow up with an Apple device because that's it. They will never move to Microsoft. Okay? Because if you use that as part of your education, your workforce will use the same. They can go to that right now. They can't though. impact on their business is so significant that they won't. The second question is about literacy. You know, when I first used a computer was in 1979. We had just migrated to Canada, and my father bought us a computer, and we became our toy, and we played with it, and we learned how to do basic programming and other things, and then got started with computers. In those days, it took you a year or two to learn how to use a computer. Today, this thing that the kids do meet, this is the kid's pacifier. When your 8-month-old is crying, you take your tablet, you put it in front of them with some animation on it, and they stop crying. The learning curve is so short, that to prove it, because I was talking for way too long, I didn't spend much time on the Frugal app, right? To prove it, we were able to get these students to create an app for Frugalas as a point-of-sale terminal that manages inventory and credit and so on, and has a back-end integration to a server that tells the supplier the guy's running a bananas and is not going to have any more banana sales for the rest of the afternoon or whatever. That requires very little amounts of literacy. These touchscreen graphical user interfaces are so good now that it takes very little amount of time to get them to learn how to use it. Or, sorry, you got it.
You indicated in your latest Rush 4 version, the CPU resources is as good or latest as the iPad 4. Does it mean that your target market has moved from the basic users to more advanced users?
The target market hasn't used from that perspective. It's not a basic versus advanced, it is the low end versus the high end. The performance has reached that level, the price is still the same. And I'll explain what happened and why it happened. To wait 3 years until Apple's done with it, to use a processor that they got done with 3 or 4 years ago, sure, you can get a lower cost. Well, how do you do the same processor level, same caliber processor, same performance processor as what they're using today, but at a 1/10 price? This wasn't a problem that we solved. This was a problem that Google solved. What Google did was they said, well, the PC market is owned by Microsoft, right? And Intel and AMD. And when they wanted to make Android and do it, Intel and AMD said, well, whatever, but you know what? Our God is Microsoft, okay? And we can't disrupt them. So these guys went to a British company that were making a CPU architecture called ARM, okay? And said to ARM that we will put our OS on you on the condition that you will make a very small licensing fee and allow anybody that wanted to make CPUs to make CPUs. So a few smart Indian kids in Silicon Valley said, I can get a virtual outsourced fab, I'll take this reference design they've given, $50,000, and I can be in the CPU business. So about 3 years ago, 200 different companies started making CPUs. The only ones we know of are Intel and AMD. Now when hundreds of companies start doing it, some get venture funded, it's a grab for market share, there's a huge effort, and a few of those companies are Chinese. And they start cutting each other's throat. Today, a CPU that is 1.5 gigahertz dual core processor, okay, costs less than $4. $4. You know, 10 years ago when they used to make microwave ovens, to put the CPU in the microwave oven that does the clock and the settings would cost more than $4. Today, that is enough to power supercomputers. I mean, if you think about 1.5 billion instructions per second, that's a lot of processing power. Dual core, that's a lot of processing power.
I have a question. So how do you access the speed of the internet? How do you access the speed of the modern times?
So
Internet access the speed.
So this is what happens, right? The technology that we created reduces the CMU page from 1.5 megabytes to 30 kilobytes. How we do that is like this. We discovered that the problem with the web page is not pictures, it lies somewhere else. When somebody sees a page coming slow, they say, it's coming slow because it's got a lot of pictures on it. The big problem isn't pictures. The problem is the instruction set. If you look at an average web page, 75% of the content of a web page is the HTML coding, the JavaScript, the ActiveX, the cookies, all the instruction set. The pictures make up only 20%, text makes up about 5% on average. And in a mobile environment where you've got a limited amount of processing power because of form factor, and you've got a limited amount of bandwidth, it is very, very difficult to send all of that to the client device and process it at the device. So we created this algorithm, we created this technology where we pre-process the page. We're in a parallel processing environment. We pre-process, pre-render the page, compress it, send it across. The result is that a megabyte and a half CNN page gets reduced to 30 kilobytes. The look, feel, functionality is exactly the same. On that same pipe, if I've got to send 1.5 megabytes, and today's GPRS networks in India, that would take 5 minutes. But I don't have to send 1.5 megabytes. I only have to send 30 kilobytes. But the look and feel and functionality stays the same. So that is how both speed and cost get impacted.
How far?
Right behind you.
Just a small question, like we are talking quite specific to the IT area here, but I want to just ask one question on the pricing side. Like many companies nowadays, like you are also doing, the tablet probably, we go to 3 years back, it cost 8,000 to 10,000 rupees roughly. Today on the net you search, you get a tablet as you are saying up to 3,000, 4,000 rupees. So most of the electronic companies, whether it's a cell phone or tablets, using this as a strategy, like price point, like just flash the price to the minimum level and get the market or get the crowd attracted towards it, right? But in general, there is a perception in India especially, like as the price goes down, the quality of the product is not sustained well. So my question is that when you plan such a strategy, do you consider some high percentage of warranties or the risk during the start, or
So I'll explain. Most companies don't use this as a strategy, they're forced into it. Okay? Most companies are forced into it because to stay competitive, they've got to match price. And we're an instigator, right? If you go to Flipkart and you search for calling tabs, and most of the tabs that get sold are calling tabs, the ones that take a SIM, and you search based on price, there are only 2 tablets below 5,000 rupees, and both are ours. We have 4,000 rupee and a 5,000 rupee tablet. The next tablet up is around 5,800, and then price keeps going up. 4,000 versus 5,800, that's a big price difference. So while there are Wi-Fi units or old resistive units at different kind of price points, for what really sells, there's still sort of a 40% price differential between us and the rest of the market. So we're a bit of an instigator to make that come down. Let me explain how we look at quality, right? It's not about expecting higher warranty issues. It's not about dropping quality, okay? Look, my first computer in 1979 was about $8,000, okay? Had a 2 megabyte hard drive that was about this big, okay? And so on. Today, a $400 computer is thousands of times better than that $8,000 computer. It's not that quality's gone down. So it's not necessarily that quality goes down, but it's important to understand that quality needs to be defined with the customer in mind. Okay? My father turned 70 about 3 years ago, and my sisters and us, and we decided we're going to buy a very expensive car, right? So, what does he really want? A very expensive car. Bought him a Bentley. Okay? So we bought him a Bentley, and these aren't in stock, right? They come, they get custom made or whatever, and they come. So it comes, and he rejects it because he looks at it very carefully. And one of the things with Bentley is that the threading is hand stitched. the threading by a machine is a lot better than hand stitching. So he looks at it and says, oh, I don't like this, sends it back because he doesn't like the threading, okay? Went through that 3 times before he finally accepted that car. Now, I tell you, nobody buys a Tata Nano and looks at the threading and says, I don't like the quality of the threading and I'm rejecting this, mujhe aur dikhao. Right? Quality is based on the customer's expectations. What is quality? I have to meet and beat your expectations. Doesn't mean I can give you crap. I have to beat your expectations. And in a number of areas, for example, watching video, no matter how poor the customer is, he's seen video on movies that took hundreds of millions of dollars to make, right? He's seen Terminator or whatever movies he's seen that took a huge amount of money to make. If the quality of video is not what he's accustomed to, he will not buy the product. Even our very entry-level devices, even 2 years ago, had to have an HD video processor. Because anything less than HD video, we knew that the rickshaw